What's going on, and welcome to the NBA DFS Q&A show. My name is Tom Vecchio. I'll be here for the next 30 minutes taking your questions about tonight's 11-game NBA slate. Plenty to get to. We're waiting on a few injuries for a number of teams. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at DFS_Tom. I do the Daily ISO, which is our daily NBA DFS podcast right here at numberfire.com. Also writing up 3 value plays for each slate. It's going to be a good one. We should be in for plenty of scoring. Again, waiting on a few injuries. The Jimmy Butler news, the Bam Adebayo news is certainly very important. Let's jump right in with Grim on YouTube. What do you think of stacking Trae Young with Bogdanovich and using the Lakers' Talen Horton-Tucker as well? I think you would want confirmation that Bogdanovich is actually going to be playing for the Hawks. Of course, he is listed as questionable for them. I don't really think of his game time decision questionable, whatever you want to call it. I don't really think of NBA in terms of stacking. I think it's just a good spot overall for them versus the Celtics. And of course, Talen Horton-Tucker is playing plenty of minutes for the Lakers. I think that game is going to stay a little bit closer than the 9-point spread that 8 or 8.5 now indicates. So I do like THT tonight. Of course, go for Trae Young anytime, but the Bogdanovich news, you got to wait on for final confirmation. Stacking Matu, with Halliburton, Jalen Green, and Alex Caruso. I like that Sacramento Minnesota game a lot. Big fan of this game. Already took the over on Karl-Anthony Towns. It's 39.5, 38.5 when it comes to points, rebounds, assists combined. I'm very high on Karl-Anthony Towns tonight. I think he's actually going to be one of the best plays of the slate. 39.5, took the over on his points, rebounds, and assists. I think that's fine. Matu, you get some value in there. I think that's certainly fine as well. Caruso, we know, providing plenty of point per dollar value. And Jalen Green, we are waiting on the confirmation for Kevin Porter Jr., who is, I believe he's still listed as questionable. Yeah, still listed as questionable. So there could be extra shot attempts to go around for Jalen Green if we see Kevin Porter ruled out. So on board with all of those players. We have Andrew on Facebook, paying up for Tatum and find value somewhere else, or run with Bam and pay up at another position. Well, we have to wait to see if Bam is actually ruled in because he's listed as questionable. He has missed just, one game for the Heat at this point? Their most recent game against Oklahoma City Thunder. Yeah, just the one game. I think he's obviously in a great spot going up against the Pelicans. They are certainly weak on defense, allowing the 6th most FanDuel points per game to opposing centers. So I love this spot for Bam. We just have to wait for him to get officially ruled in. I would love the value that we get with Dwayne Dedmon, who got to start the other night in OKC. Dedmon is also listed as questionable. So I'd wait there. I, of course, like Jayson Tatum. I think that this is a really good game for him. What the over-under is at, sitting at 214, right? 216 now for this game. I think that, the Hawks are looking kind of average to start the season, and we know that Tatum is always going to be filling up the stat sheet for them. We also have Al Horford projected to be starting because Robert Williams has been ruled out. So I'm also high on Al Horford. I took the over on his points, rebounds, and assists, which is sitting at 24.5. I took the over on that. Really liking this matchup for him. Just an insane volume of shots for Jayson Tatum on a nightly basis, doing plenty when it comes to the peripheral stat category, taking plenty of three-pointers. So I'm very big on Jayson Tatum. I also took the over on this game. I think I got it at 214. Let me just double check. Yeah, I have it at 2. I got it at 214 earlier this morning. So I have the over on that game. I have the over on Al Horford. So I'm very big on this Boston-Atlanta game. Again, Boston, Atlanta, they both look kind of average to start the season. Not a whole lot of defense for either of them. DJ is asking, any prop bets you like for the Bulls tonight? I would have to, I haven't looked at that game specifically. I think waiting on some of the potential injury news for the Trailblazers is what I would want to wait on. But Nurkic, let's see what his points. Nurkic 26.5 is interesting. Obviously, if Lillard gets ruled out, I would consider McCollum. DeRozan's been super hot as of late. What's his points and assists? I would consider DeRozan prop. I'd have to dig a bit more into it, but we know that the volume of shots for DeRozan is obviously fantastic on a nightly basis. low 20s, high teens every single night. He's been super hot as of late. What's his points prop sitting at? Let me just check that, because some people don't like to go to combos. DeRozan 25. Lonzo Ball over 13.5. As I said before, he's been improving his three-point shooting as of late. So DeRozan or Lonzo Ball are spots that I would certainly be going. I also think that the 1.5 line, I think it is for this game, could certainly flip easily if we see Lillard and Norman Powell ruled out. So if you want to just take the Bulls at the money line at plus 102 or just on the spread plus 1.5, I think that's also good. If Lillard is going to be ruled out, he missed a couple games ago. He played the other night, so back and forth with this abdominal injury. Andrew on Facebook is saying Brunson, Hardaway stack or too much Dallas there. I think that we're going to see a lot of Hardaway and Brunson together. Just the value that they bring and the roles that they should be playing are just so clear for Dallas, with Luka Doncic being ruled down. He's going to be out for a couple of games. I wrote up Tim Hardaway today. Big minutes projection for him. We always know he can get those shots going. And specifically for Hardaway tonight, if he gets the three-pointers going, as we know, he takes plenty of three-pointers on a nightly basis. We see Phoenix right now allowing the 12th most three-pointers made per game from their opponents, sitting at 12.5 per game. So this is like just a really good spot for him and Brunson to have plenty of shots. Really liking that. So yes, Brunson and Tim Hardaway are perfect together. I think you look to them. I think Josh Giddey is going to be super popular tonight. Who else? Dean Wade, I wrote up him as well. He's going to be super popular just because the Cavs are so shorthanded at the big man position. We know he's going to be popular. I know a lot of people take shots on Yedai Osman and Isaac Okoro. I think that's fine. Chimezi Mitu also should be popular, $4,100, playing a solid amount of minutes for Sacramento off the bench. And then we'll see plenty of Brunson, plenty of THT, plenty of Hardaway, and Josh Giddey, all very popular value options on tonight's slate. Kool-Aid is asking, is this only for DFS Q&A? Yeah, I mean, if you want to throw me some betting questions, I talk about betting plenty. If you're asking for football, that'll be back tomorrow. But this is only NBA. You want DFS or betting, that's all fine. But NFL will be there tomorrow. So overall on this slate, I think the things could change if we get Jimmy Butler or Bam or both of them ruled out. Let's just give this a quick refresh to see. So no updated news as of yet, because the lineup construction could change for some people. I know, like I said, I'm very high on Karl-Anthony Towns. I think that this is a phenomenal matchup for him. Sacramento, obviously not good on defense, as they haven't been for a number of years. Both teams in the top 10 of the league when it comes to offensive pace. We're also dealing with, 227 over-under? Yeah, 227 over-under, 1 point spread. Like, this is an awesome fantasy environment. So I know I'm focusing on spending up for Karl-Anthony Towns. Then, obviously, there's plenty of value on tonight's slate. So you want to take someone like Dean Wade, totally fine. You want to get some Tim Hardaway, Jalen Brunson in your lineup, totally fine as well. We have open spots. We're dealing with nearly 7,000 remaining per player. I think the way you can go about lineup construction tonight is absolutely fantastic. I know plenty of people are still going to want to pay up for someone like Antetokounmpo, and you could certainly do so because there's still plenty of flexibility within your lineup. So paying up for multiple stars and going with the stars and scrubs build is obviously very viable on a 10, 11 game slate as we have tonight. This Indiana-Detroit game, I know there's some value options there. Both of these teams have been trending under in terms of their overall games this season. 205 over-under certainly isn't amazing. So I know I'm going to be limiting my exposure to this game. I think you could take some shots with Cade Cunningham. He's obviously taking plenty of field goal attempts on a nightly basis. He's certainly going to have his struggles as a rookie, but the overall volume of shots we always want to be seeing, and a lot of them coming from downtown. Also, if you can continue to build a stat sheet to provide plenty of fantasy value on a nightly basis. Isaiah Stewart, also a player I've been going back to a bit recently with Kelly Olynyk out of the lineup for a couple of weeks for Detroit, providing some solid fantasy production as well. How do you look at the Bucks tonight? Middleton coming back concerns me a bit with the spread and how it spreads things out. So I am cautiously optimistic on Chris Middleton. Like I said, coming back. He hasn't played in a while, and I got to say, like, Middleton's a player. I spoke about it briefly on the podcast, the Daily ISO today, where a part of me almost wants to completely eliminate Middleton from my player pool. Just as the day has gone on, the more and more I think about it, him playing only 25 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, depending on his conditioning, is something that wouldn't surprise me tonight. Him being rather ineffective shooting the ball also wouldn't surprise me tonight. I also think, just looking at the shooting guard position tonight overall, the opportunity cost of rostering him over someone like CJ McCollum potentially, if we see Lillard ruled out, that is just too great of a difference. I would go to McCollum 10 times out of 10 ahead of Middleton. I'd also be willing to go to Spencer Dinwiddie. I would also be willing to go to Tyler Hero if we see Jimmy Butler ruled out. So, the conditioning status, just how involved Middleton is going to be into, in fully integrated back into the Milwaukee Bucks rotation. A, that's a concern. And then B, the opportunity cost of passing up McCollum if Lillard is ruled out, and Hero if Butler is ruled out, I think is too great. So that's why I've been thinking more and more about just completely eliminating Middleton from my lineup. Bobby Portis or Tony Bradley. I like Tony Bradley tonight. I think that this game has some back and forth potential. It's obviously a very close spread. It's trending nicely with a 219 over under. So I would certainly look to Tony Bradley. I think he's well projected tonight. 26 minutes or 25 minutes, 22 FanDuel points. It's what we should be getting from him, obviously, just given the other options in the Bulls offense. He's probably going to be producing under 1 FanDuel point per minute, but he'll be exceeding value. He's only $3,900. So I would take Tony Bradley tonight. So again, Middleton, kind of a player that I'm shying away from a little bit tonight. DJ is asking Dwight Powell or Miles Turner. Again, not super high on this Indiana and Detroit game. Miles Turner, we also know, can be rather inconsistent at times. I know he's been producing some solid fantasy points, but dipping down to in the 20s, these random games where he's below 20 FanDuel points is certainly a bit concerning. I would rather take Dwight Powell in a game that I think is going to be very solid for value. Yes, we're not going to be seeing him as the primary shot taker, but I like his ability to rack up boards. I like his ability to get a few above the rim field goals, obviously not creating his own field goal attempts too much. But I would rather take Dwight Powell over Miles Turner tonight. I just think that this game overall, and if I bring it up real quickly, in terms of these teams, again, they're both trending relatively low. Over-under, Indiana is 5-10 in terms of over-unders, and Detroit is 6-6. So this matchup does not trend well for a lot of scoring tonight. Just not a spot that I'm looking. I would also rather take potential value at the center position. I mean, Al Horford isn't a value, but I'd rather go there. I'm big on him tonight. Dwight Powell's 4,300. Metu, I would rather take him at 4,100 over Dwight Powell. I'd rather take Metu over probably either of those players, if we're being honest. And then Tony Bradley, both better options compared to Dwight Powell. If I'm being honest, that's where I would look initially. So this slate, I think we have to wait on the injury news for Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo. Who else are we waiting on? Damian Lillard, Bogdanovich. Also Kevin Love. He's set to come back for Cleveland. I assume he'd be in the starting lineup. If by chance he's magically ruled out, that would open up even more value. We'd probably see, would we get Taco Fall minutes for Cleveland at that point? If Kevin Love, again, he's on track to play, hasn't played in quite a while. He hasn't played since October the 30th, so it's been 2+ weeks. He's on track to play. I think he's a viable option tonight. Not someone I'm like running to play, but I know I'll have a little bit of exposure to him. I have a little bit more interest in Dean Wade just because of his salary at 3,600, and even Isaac Okoro also at 3,600. Those are players I'm looking to a bit more than Kevin Love. Can we go back to no multi-position? 320 points doesn't mean anything anymore. I'm getting killed by this year. I have no control over that. Multi-position certainly brings a new element to lineup construction as it did with MLB when players have like shortstop and second base eligibility. It's just something that you have to learn to adapt to. I have no control over it, but if I could go back to single position eligibility, I think that'd be awesome. But I think the faster you adapt to it, the faster you can gain an edge on the audience. Now, at the forward position, I know a lot of people are going to be focusing on spending up, whether it's a Antetokounmpo, Durant, Tatum, whoever it might be, obviously Anthony Davis. I think those are all solid options. But there's also plenty of value down at the forward position if you're looking to pivot away from certain options. I think Dorian Finney-Smith makes a nice pivot because we should be expecting, again, Jalen Brunson and Hardaway and Porzingis to be popular. Dorian Finney-Smith allows you to gain a little bit of leverage if either of those players have an off night and he happens to have an on night. I think that's fine. Cam Reddish, I spoke about him briefly on the podcast. I think he's also in play as a value option tonight for Atlanta. If we see both Bogdanovich and Kevin Huerter ruled out, he's a player that could certainly jump into the starting lineup for the Atlanta Hawks. We already know he plays a ton of minutes on a nightly basis. He's the player I would assume jumps into the starting lineup, depending on who is out, in or out for the Hawks. So Bogdanovich, Huerter, waiting on that news because I think Cam Reddish presents a bit of value tonight. Thoughts on Duncan Hines? Thoughts on Duncan Hines Robinson would be candidate for extra minutes if Butler's out. So Robinson already plays, where's the Heat game? Robinson already plays a normal amount of minutes. He's in their starting lineup playing in the high 20s, low 30s on a nightly basis. The issue I have generally with Duncan Robinson is that most of his value, if not all of it, is always coming from pure scoring, right? Where he doesn't always do a whole lot when it comes to the peripheral stat category. Like this 9-rebound game against the Clippers is obviously an outlier, where most of the time, as you can see, 4.3 rebounds, 1.6 assists, he's not doing a whole lot. So if he does not get the scoring going, he doesn't provide fantasy value. So the minutes are going to be secure for him kind of regardless. He's in the mid to high 20s, low 30s most nights, regardless if Jimmy Butler's there or not. It comes down to his fantasy potential. I think the extra shots will be there for him if Jimmy Butler is ruled out. I think that's the spot that you want to be going. And because the Pelicans are bottom 10 in the league for the most three-pointers allowed, this is a good matchup for him. So Robinson, I'd never look at it at a minutes question. It's more about his opportunity because we know here Tyler Hero does a bit more when it comes to the peripheral stats, which is why he has a higher floor. And we know he obviously has a similar shot volume potentially if Jimmy Butler is out. So for me, Duncan Robinson is always a great tournament option because he can exceed value quickly if he hits 6 threes, which he can certainly do. And more importantly, what I like to look at when it comes to Duncan Robinson or a player, the player profile similar to Duncan Robinson is how many of his three-point attempts are coming in comparison to his overall field goal attempts, where we're seeing nearly all of them come from downtown, which is great. That scoring upside is immense. So he's like the ideal candidate for a tournament, because if he gets hot from the field, like he could score 25 real points, like all of them from threes, and then he's crushing value. It is a good matchup against the Pelicans. So it's not about the minutes for someone like Duncan Robinson. It's about his opportunity. Mika is asking, or Mikhail, I should say, is asking KD or Tatum tonight. I would take Tatum. Just that game should stay a little bit closer compared to the Nets game. 10-point spread here. It opened up at 11. It was down to 9.5. It's back up at 10. I would rather take Tatum in this 5-point spread going up against Atlanta. Higher over under. Yes, KD could go out there and dominate, but we also could see him sit in the fourth quarter as he did last night. Obviously, a different side of a blowout compared to the Warriors. Them losing big, they could be up huge over the Cavaliers, and he just doesn't play full minutes. So I would take Tatum in that spot. DJ's asking, is there a bench player you would look to put in your fantasy lineups tonight? I think that they're Chemezi Metu. I think you look to him if he's going to be in the starting lineup. I guess that rules that out. Who would I look to as specifically as a bench player tonight? Only a bench player? That's a good question, because we're not talking about value at that point. We're talking about strictly a bench player. Well, Bembry should be in for plenty of minutes because their rotation is thinned out. I think that's fine. Derrick Rose and Emmanuel Quickly are always candidates to get hot from the field and score. They are bench players. I think that's fine. Kelly Oubre could be in for another big game. I like this game environment overall. Certainly looking to attack there. I mean, that's a really specific question. I kind of like that. What bench player specifically are you looking for? Buddy Hield always comes off the bench for the Kings, that he just takes an insane volume of three-pointers on a nightly basis. I mean, 9+ 3-point attempts in, 7 straight games. and 7+ in basically every single game. If he gets hot from the field, he's a player that could crush. I like that. So yeah, so Buddy Hield, he's probably my favorite option. Bembry would also be an option. Derrick Rose quickly, Kelly Oubre. I think those are all very solid options to come off the bench, provide that scoring boost. Hopefully they're not super popular. Christian Wood or Montrezl Harrell, I would take Montrezl Harrell. Again, this game environment overall I think is very, very solid. Nothing against Christian Wood. We obviously know he can produce plenty of fantasy points on a nightly basis. This matchup is just, I think, a little bit unenticing to me. Just two bad teams against each other. I know I like a few value options in here, potentially Jalen Green. I do like Josh Giddey tonight, but Christian Wood, the potential upside for him is rather limited just in this game environment overall. I think that's what it comes down to. Yeah, DJ, I think that's hopefully that answered your question. Hield, quickly, Rose, Oubre. I think they're all in play. That scoring upside for Buddy Hield, especially in this game, I think is absolutely awesome. What about Yeti Osman? He's a bench player. Totally on board with that. The Cavs are shorthanded, and they're generally running a thinner rotation. So this website, popcornmachine.net, I know it's a kind of a weird name, but this shows you the game flow logs for teams, and you can see exactly what players come in and out. So Osman is always one of the first players off the bench for the Cavaliers, playing big 31 minutes the other night. Obviously, the return of Kevin Love changes things slightly, but Evan Mobley is now out of the rotation. So I think it's going to be like a 1-for-1 swap. So Osman is also a player I would look to playing plenty of minutes. And we also see that he comes on the floor and he's taking 5 field goal attempts. He's getting some rebounds, some assists, some steals, which is of course good to see that he's involved in the offense for the Cavaliers. So Osman is another player I would look to. Any Bulls players you put in tournament play, of course. Always some Bulls players. DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine are always candidates to have 30+ real points just due to the volume of shots that they are taking, right? Players that have immense scoring upside have it because they are primary shot takers for their given offense. Seeing high teens and low 20s most of the time, this 12 field goal attempt game for Zach LaVine is clearly the outlier when his floor other than that is 17, and more often than not, he's taking 20+ field goal attempts. This is a player that we know can get super hot from the field and go for 30, 40 real points. And the same thing for DeRozan now. Now, he's obviously not taking as many three-pointers as Zach LaVine is, but the volume of field goal attempts is always immense for DeMar DeRozan. So DeRozan and LaVine would be my two ideal tournament options just because getting 50+ or 60+ FanDuel points from them is realistic if they score 35 or 40 real points, which we know can happen, especially in a matchup against the Trailblazers, a team we know does not play good defense, a high over-under, a close spread. It's setting up to be a perfect game environment. So the Bulls and Trailblazers, the Kings and Timberwolves, the Celtics, Hawks, and the Wizards, Hornets are some of my favorite games on tonight's slate. Obviously, I don't think that's going to be like a super hot take or anything like the Pacers, Pistons, Cavaliers, Nets, Magic, Knicks. Like these are much lower over-unders. And frankly, you can limit your exposure to those games outside of a few value plays because we know that the scoring upside in some of these other games is just significantly higher. The whole roster, DJ saying the whole roster you can play in a tournament. That's true because Portland just does not play a whole lot of defense. I think that this game environment overall, where we have Chicago, 22nd in the league when it comes to pace. Portland is 24th. They're not playing super fast overall, but we know the defense or the lack thereof is certainly prevalent for Portland. When it comes to, look at this, the third most three-pointers allowed per game to their opponents, 14.1. 14.1 made three-pointers from their opponents per game. We look to Zach LaVine, 13 three-pointers in his two most recent games. Obviously, an increase from where he's been. Obviously, I don't expect it to be at 13 on a nightly basis. I also don't expect it to be 4 or 2. So settling somewhere around 7, 8, 9 three-point attempts per game for Zach LaVine is where he should be, and it's a great matchup for him to hopefully accentuate that three-point ability that he has against Portland. What about Hardaway and Brunson tonight for Dallas? Do you think they will both get more minutes? Yeah, Michael, if you weren't here at the beginning, expecting Brunson and Tim Hardaway to be very, very popular tonight, just given their expanded offensive roles for Dallas when Luka is off the court. If we just flip to this real quickly, Luka off the court. So we can take a look at their offensive usage. I mean, great increase in offensive usage for Tim Hardaway. Dorian Finney-Smith, he doesn't change anything in his production, but the extra usage is there, which is obviously, I guess, a net neutral. But Brunson producing more fantasy points, Hardaway producing more fantasy points and extra usage. That's what we want to see. We want to see extra production from Brunson, from Hardaway. They should be very chalky tonight. They're both probably going to play 30-plus minutes. Very, very solid. Upper on YouTube is asking, is Lonzo worth a look tonight? Yeah, I always kind of like Lonzo as a solid, consistent option. Most people will look to DeRozan or Zach LaVine or normally Vucevic as an option, but his ability to fill up the stat sheet is always consistent, providing a solid floor of points. And then when he gets the shot going, which he has been improving over the past few seasons, especially from downtown, when he gets the three-pointer going, which he can actually do, I know he kind of got knocked for that in his first few years in the league, but he's been getting better at the mid-range shot at the deep ball in these recent years. And if that scoring upside is going to be there for him, combined with the high floor from his kind of sneaky double-double potential, I always think Lonzo's in play. And $6,000 is a very, very modest salary. It's like you're not paying a whole lot to get a player that can go for like 45-plus points. So a lot of Chicago players are going to be in play tonight. I will say if Lillard is ruled out, you could look to Anthony Simons. I think that's pretty easy. When Norman Powell was missed a few games earlier in the year, we saw Nasir Little step into the starting lineup. Both Lillard and Powell are listed as questionable for tonight's game. So we have to wait on that. We also have to wait on the Jimmy Butler news, the Bam Adebayo news. That's pretty big. I think the Bam Adebayo news is it opens up obviously more value. I guess we have to wait on the Dwayne Dedmon news as well, because Dwayne Dedmon is also listed as questionable. But if Bam is out and Dedmon is in, I'm looking at Dedmon. If Jimmy Butler is out, I'm looking to Tyler Hero much more confidently tonight. I still think Hero is a solid option. He would also be a candidate for like that sixth man question, because he normally comes off the bench for the Heat when they are at full health. So that is something to consider as well, because the scoring upside has been very, very apparent for Hero, who's having a nice bounce back year. So Hero would also be an option. And of course, if Butler is ruled out, I think Hero should be very, very popular. Tonight's slate, I think, is going to be good. The scoring should be there for a lot of these games. I think that the injury situation is, we're waiting on a few important players, but it's not a long list, which is good. You should be able to narrow down your player pool. Again, some of these lower scoring games, Indiana, Detroit, Orlando, New York, Brooklyn, Cleveland, I think is a slight exception because there's a lot of value there with Patty Mills, Bruce Brown, Bembry, Okoro, Wade, some of those players. But some of these other games I'm not like super high on when it comes to their overall fantasy potential. Sacramento, Minnesota is awesome. Chicago, Portland could be awesome. Boston, Atlanta, I said I already took the over on that game. Washington, Charlotte, already took the over on that game, and Charlotte on the money line. Really liking some of these matchups. How do we feel about Grant Williams for Boston tonight? Do you think there's some value there? There certainly could be. The issue for him is that his overall involvement in the offense is rather low. And we are hoping that this game really turns into a back and forth shootout so he can fill up the stat category, like fill up the peripheral stats, because he's really not going to get there for pure scoring, because Schroeder, obviously Tatum first, I should say, Tatum, Schroeder, and Horford are all going to be taking field, and Smart are all going to be taking field goal attempts ahead of him. So his pure scoring upside is going to be limited. You're hoping for like 8, 10 real points with him filling up the stat sheet just because the game is so back and forth. So I would consider him tonight because I'm also playing the over in this game, so it goes along with that theory. But on a nightly basis, I think Grant Williams is a pretty thin option overall. Let's look to Grant Williams real quickly at power forward. He's $3,700. I mean, I would rather just take Dean Wade at 36. That's the main player to make, just because the minutes are going to be so secure for Wade, and he should have significantly more involvement in the offense. All right, so that does it for today's Q&A. Good slate, 11 games, few injuries to take note of. We should be in a good spot overall. There will be no show next week because it's the day before Thanksgiving. We'll be back in 2 weeks to take your questions. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at DFS_Tom. Until next time, good luck in your contest.